Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning.
Welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
This week we're going to wrap up our Unusual Musicals Festival with a great punishment review of 2019 Tom Hooper movie, Cats Meow.
Let's dive... Oh, shit.
Oh, you ruined it!
All right, everybody, I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher. Hey, if you like what you see slash hear, please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel, so please, if you're just clicking by and seeing us, we have all sorts of festivals every week. We do tops and flops. We do best ofs. We do 101s. We do recasting. We have all sorts of segments to play around with film history and have fun, good conversations. So please subscribe.
As well as punishment reviews, which we're doing this week. Every once in a while, you know, you can talk about Lars von Trier till the cows come home. You can talk about Werner Herzog and luminary, documentary films, but at some point you got to sit down and you got to watch Cats. And
do you though? Do you?
We do, apparently, by our own rules.
We're torturing ourselves with this one. Wow. Obviously something like this, I have some prerequisites I want to put out there before we start probably bashing this movie. So bashers beware. But, one, I don't think either of us are massive musical fans. We definitely love some musicals, and if it's done right, absolutely some of our favorite movies. Singing in the Rain, for me, is one of my all-time favorites. But even something like Once is a beautiful musical, right? Like just something amazing like that where, it's still a musical. There's music in it. And then you have your traditional musical like this. Personally, I've never had an attachment to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, like a variety, Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh, no, thank you. Evita, like all of the stuff that made him famous. What is the Technicolor Dreamcoat, I think is another one. Like, just before my time, I'd never really, I have no attachment. So, I actually didn't even know what the story of Cats was until I watched this movie.
It's okay. I as I've said before, I saw this when I was younger.
This one?
Not this, not the one that came out last year, but I saw the actual stage musical of this in London in the 80s. Okay.
And it's been going since then, right? Like
it started in 81. That's when the original stage production was made, was in 1981.
Okay.
So I've seen this and Phantom of the Opera. Listen, if you think Cats is the corniest, Starlight Express, my friend, with singing trains. Now that's the corniest one. It's a musical on roller skates, and that's true. They skate through the audience. But anyway,
so let me ask you, someone who has more of a history with this, what is the appeal of Cats to make it this long? I mean, 40 years is a long time to still be doing something, but watching this, I have no idea what the appeal is.
I agree with you. And I think that I loved this when I was a kid because I just thought that like the stage production was so amazing. The costumes were incredible. The songs were really infectious. As an adult, I mean, watching this, even if they had just done it as like an adaptation that was a stage adaptation without doing what he did,
yes,
it would still just be pretty corny as an adult now, where I'm just like hearing the Jellicle Cat song and all these things. I'm like, oh right, I remember these, and I'm like,
the songs are very dated. Wouldn't
they're
you say
very
the
dated.
songs
that's a huge part of it. They're very dated. I think in the 80s they were like, kind of a different thing.
Yeah, like almost like funky a little bit sometimes, and it's just so not my bag at all. And so I can't wait to talk about this movie. Let's talk about Tom Hooper for just a second, though.
Yes, let's do.
You know, he did the Les Mis remake, I think, with Anne Hathaway. I immediately saw those two things and said, nope, I'm out. So I didn't see that one. He did The Danish Girl, which is a decent movie with Eddie Redmayne. And then The King's Speech, which is an excellent movie.
Which is great.
Excellent.
I mean,
amazing
in
movie.
my head, all of these, because the majority of the cast here in Cats is from the newest London production that was happening the year before. And you think of those poor dancers that are just like working their asses off, and they're like, oh my God, Fauna from the Heavens. The guy that did The King's Speech is doing Cats. I get to be in that. And now you're just
Les Mis.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, whatever drunken London party that Tom Hooper got Judi Dench and Sir Ian McKellen and all of these amazing English actors in, and said, hey, we're doing Cats. It's gonna be awesome. It's supposed to be fully animated, but nope, I'm gonna make it like human cats, like the play. And to me, I watch it and I'm just like, there's so many things wrong right away.
Oh yeah. So let's start from sort of the beginning here. So I think right out of the gates, the very first thing I noticed is I actually really liked the weird cartoony look to the surroundings. It was kind of a cute Jean-Pierre Jeunet weird Ratatouille looking thing, and I was like, okay, this is okay. And that was before I saw the first person as a cat. And then I was like, ew, okay, now I'm getting this really weird Uncanny Valley thing. But when I just saw the surroundings, I was like, huh, all right, this is kind of interesting looking.
For me, if you're going to remake something in a different medium, you need to be able to embrace that medium. And right away, the movie looked too much like a stage play already. And I'm just like, when you have this whole medium and all of these special effects, which this is basically a green screen movie, if we're talking about it. Like, I've seen the play setups and the art direction there. Why are you making it look like that? You have this whole world of possibilities, and you make it look like it does when someone goes to see it in the theater. Then you get people walking around being cats, which is already weird by itself. But then it just looks like Dick Tracy. You know, like something like that, right?
True. I agree.
Like,
yes,
it just looks weird, and then you get into the whole Jellicle thing and kind of who they are, but it's hard to follow this story.
That's the thing. Well, and normally in musicals, because you are sitting in a chair and you are taking things in with your eyeballs and your ears, and everything is sort of happening in one set location, it's easy to catch the references and the exposition and the little aside jokes that are happening. But here, like, Hooper is spending so much time doing, I mean, in some of these musical numbers, they're cutting, he's got shots that are like 2 seconds long before it switches to another shot and switches to, it's like this hyperkinetic editing sequence. And I'm like, you lose anything that might be in there that might be playful, because the Jellicle Cats number technically does explain like the whole purpose of who all these cats are, why they're there, what the Knight of the Jellicle Cats trying to choose one that goes up to the Heaviside Layer. All of that's in the song, along with all these like fun little musical style jokes. But all of that was lost when you watch it, because you're like, you can't even tell what the hell is going on. And half of it is because you're distracted by the fact that the cats are so sexy. Adam, why are they so fucking sexy?
I definitely have a question, and I guess I'll just get into it now. I have a lot to say, but who is this movie for? Can you tell me who this movie's for?
I know,
because there's the weird sexual side to it.
Yes.
It's human beings being cats, let alone mice, just shouldn't happen. They look naked.
They all look naked. Yes.
Like at a certain point, just go fully animated. And apparently that's what was supposed to happen. And Tom Hooper said, nope, we're doing it real.
Really?
And
I didn't know
Skywalker
that.
Ranch said, "Cool, we're not doing the effects then," and they got out. So George Lucas, it was bad enough for George Lucas to go, "Nope, sorry."
When he's like, Hooper, that CGI will look like shit. Yeah, for him to bow out, that's definitely saying something.
I think from the story point where they're trying to explain everything, so much is spoken in metaphor already, and then you're singing it to me. So I get taken out of musicals when they sing close to everything, and which is I guess the traditional. That's kind of the tradition of a musical, right? But a film musical, I think, should have a subtler way of maybe doing that or having a different display of things. And I get the Broadway play, and there's a historical nature to some of the things they're doing, but it's hard to follow. And there's just so many characters in the show, and they just keep popping in, and I'm like, who am I supposed to care about? There's a weird, I guess it's not weird, but there's like a racial tension thing with Jennifer Hudson's character, and she's the black cat outside who wants to join all the ones inside. And like, all I got from the Jellicoe story at the beginning was like, oh, this is like Logan's Run, right? So when they get old enough, they get chosen to go to the heavens.
I love the idea of I love the idea of like a bad 80s date where the theater woman has the sci-fi nerd and has like blown $125 on tickets to the opening night of Cats, and he's leaning over to her in the middle of the number Jellicle Cats, and he's like, if you like this,
Run.
you're gonna love Logan's Run. This is just like the carousel in Logan's Run. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty apt. Now, right here at the beginning, right after the Jellicle Cats number, they do the song "The Naming of Cats," which is actually where all of this is based upon the book Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats by T.S. Eliot.
Yep.
And if you read that, I own that book. It's an adorable. I love T.S. Eliot. It's an adorable little book. And really kind of fanciful for a guy who wrote The Wasteland. I mean, it's pretty like easygoing stuff. But there's this cute kind of like storyline in it, and a lot of these like Rum Tum Tiger and the Gumby Cat and all these other things, Grisabella, all of those are in there,
Yep.
but they're all like the most nominal. Like for Andrew Lloyd Webber to have taken this and made like a 2-hour long musical out of it is pretty bonkers. And the Heaviside Layer, all that, none of that whole plot line is not in this. Like the Practical Cats book is it's like this thick. Like it is not, a huge book. And this number of The Naming of Cats, I actually like. It's the only thing here that I actually like, where I'm like, the direction slows down, the CGI is at least tolerable, but to your point, it looks like a set. It looks like a musical set, and they're all singing very slowly, and they're in that little graveyard area, and it just kind of has this like real calm, normal look to it. And then we're off to the races again. And I'm like, oh wow, you get like this tiny snippet of what it could have been if they just would have done it with real costumes, a badass stage direction, and just done it that way. Or to your point, do an animation.
Just do it animated. Like your cats have boobs now because Taylor Swift is up there. And
that's maybe the most unsettling part.
Yeah, and so honestly, I thought the main character of Victoria was Taylor Swift the whole time until Taylor Swift showed up on the moon.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah. And I was like, that's got to be Taylor Swift, right? Like, she's the main part of it. And then it got to her, and I'm like, oh, is that Michelle Williams? Because it looks like Michelle Williams. No, it's a new actress who's obviously a ballerina, Francesca Hayward, who's black, but she plays this white cat. I would have never known she was black.
I agree.
And
very strange.
The way they do the animations are just them in the movies. Like, is it even them dancing? It looks like their faces are just floating in these things. Like, it doesn't really
Apparently,
look
they were
real.
all in the mocap suits, like the dog in the Harrison Ford movie. Like, they're all just like with the ping pongs glued to them and all that. And then they went back in. I mean, and my God, think about how many hours of work that is. Like,
So
it's
much.
just
All the hair.
well, and then you just have like these bizarre like Rebel Wilson is the Gumby cat.
so
that
bad.
whole song and that whole scene is about as weird. It is so surreal and strange, and you have no idea how you're supposed to feel because like the silliness of the lyrics and the setup and the fact that she's like scratching her crotch is only matched by like the strangeness of the visuals where like she's eating the cockroaches, which are like the little dancing cock. It's like a fever dream. Like it,
really
made me
is.
kind of nauseous where I was like, I don't feel okay. Like this is making me feel really weird.
The only time they're not singing something is when they cut away to that cameo character playing themselves, like James Corden or Rebel Wilson doing something. And Rebel Wilson's one-liners are so bad.
Oh, yeah.
They're look what the cat dragged in, or
Yeah, they're
quit
like
milking it.
They're like punch-ups, right? They're like these punch-ups. And I think actually, you know, and you mentioned the music feeling dated here. And the Rum Tum Tiger is a Curious Cat song. Explains so many of the mainstay problems with the source material where the song is weird and like doesn't really rhyme and like you said has like this like Rick James kind of vibe to it and then and so the songs are really clunky and bizarre to begin with and then there's this subtext that I guess definitely I can remember was there to some degree with the live stage production, but on the live stage production came across as more just like sassiness, like they're sassy cats. But in Tom Hooper's direction, they're hopelessly horny cats. And it's so startling. So when you elevate it with these things like the milk bar, I mean, it's like 8chan porn cesspool where I'm just like, how many things is this awakening in audiences right now by seeing like all of these CGI'd live dancers like getting their faces covered with milk at the milk bar. I'm like,
and this is a PG
this?
movie. PG movie with Taylor Swift pouring catnip.
Yeah, getting all the cats
cocaine.
high and horny, right? Yeah, it's cocaine. It's totally cocaine. I have to say, poor Jennifer Hudson as Grisabella. She's putting in way too much work for how big of a turd this movie is. Like, she is singing her heart out and she's crying and she's like, I'm like, Jennifer, save it.
Yeah,
Save
she's the only redeemable part of this movie, if you ask me. Like her and her songs, they're the only ones that stuck out as like they were trying. No one else is trying. These songs, just the pace of them is so weird. And I honestly, at a point, I'm just like Ray Winstone, Judi Dench.
That hurt.
Gandalf, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
British royalty. Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Judi Dench. Like.
Yep.
The pride of Great Britain here, covered in fur. I would say, and maybe I know I'm in the minority here because I've read some reviews. James Corden's bit, I was totally fine with. I was like, you know what? At least it's ridiculously silly and it's not sexy anymore. I love that he was in a huge fat suit. I love that they couldn't get the little pole vault thing to go. I could sit and watch him eat trash and make fart jokes and fat jokes for days if I didn't have to think about the sexy cats. Like I would totally be okay with it.
Oh, it was just too hammy, too just like slapped on type stuff. But I agree, it is not sexy, or it is a little different. There's just this movie ultimately comes down to like there's just no stakes at all for me. Like I just was not invested in anything, and I really tried to go into this with a like, okay, I don't know anything about cats. Maybe this is a cool story, or maybe they, even though they redid the CGI 2 days after it was released in theaters.
Well, we'll talk. We'll talk about
better.
the CGI in a minute. We'll talk about the CGI in a minute because I think there's some really interesting details about that.
Idris Elba's character is like maybe the biggest threat, and he's magic. But nothing else is really magic. It's just kind of random.
Yeah, and I don't remember any of that just like from the original musical.
How bad, magic. To Bjork and Lars von Trier's point, how bad can things get in a musical, right? Like there was never really any threat. So like, why should I care about this like dozens of cats you've introduced me to that are singing songs like humans.
Well, and isn't there? I totally agree, and I think that the rotating cast of different characters that come in to sing their number, each of whom is getting on the Cats Logan's run of the carousel, who we've never seen before. Like at one point I wrote, "Oh good, the tap dancing cat Skimbleshanks. I was worried that we weren't going to have time for him." Right? Like where the hell did he come? Like why do we care about the train conductor cat that's a tap dancing cat? Like he just pops up out of nowhere and all the other cats are like, "Oh good, here he is." And I'm like, "Here who is? What the hell is happening?" So I agree that's a huge problem, but the other thing I really noticed, and you're hitting the nail on the head here, which is one of the prime grievances of a really bad movie is when it thinks it's funny, and through the direction, the acting, and the music, it's trying to encourage that it's funny, but you don't find it funny. The reaction that you have to that, which I refer to lovingly as shit chills, the shit chills that you get are the thing that turn you off to it. And what this movie does is not only does it do that to be funny, but more often than not, like there's this whole dance-off sequence.
Yeah, big section.
And this whole middle section where they're doing this dance-off, and the music and camera direction begs us to have emotional resonance and attach weight to the dance-off and the significance of it, but I have no idea what's happening. I have no idea. And so I'm just like, I don't know. And at one point there's like two breakdancing guys, and I'm like, "Oh, is that for the kids?"
Like the movie
guys in there for?
I agree. Like the movie starts with Francesca showing up, in this bag. So you think, okay, we're seeing the movie through her eyes. But it gets to these scenes that you're talking about. I'm like, who am I following? I don't know
Francesca,
anymore.
she just sits with her mouth open and her eyes like this.
Yeah.
For the whole movie.
To your point, I wrote down no laughing or emotional swells for me. Like I didn't laugh once. There was nothing charming about it.
No.
It was really like I'll never get that 100 minutes back or however long the movie is, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's gone. That's deathbed regrets, you guys. Deathbed regrets. Could have watched the sunset, but instead I watched Cats. So I think that the famous song, we get the famous song in here, Memories, right? Everybody, that's the one that kind of broke out.
That's the one everyone knows.
Yeah, and I will say, the other part of this movie that I actually really did enjoy, the next song after Memories, was it Old Ghosts or what is the song? It's like anyway, right after what's her bucket sings, right after Jennifer Hudson sings Memories, Victoria or Francesca, the white cat, she sings this. I think it's Old Ghosts or I'll put it up here. I can't think. That was an original song that Taylor Swift wrote that they put in there. It's not in the original musical. And it's just this little song. It's really short and it's got this refrain later. And the lyrics are like haunting and pretty. And I actually really, really enjoy that moment. And in that little moment, I'm like, oh, that song is so sad and so pretty. And the lyrics are really poignant. And this is a movie that had Rebel Wilson eating a go-go dancer cockroach a minute ago. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. And of course, then the next thing I wrote, which I texted you when we were both watching it, was I hate creativity.
Yes,
and Andrew Lloyd Webber can kiss my ass. So it's an overdose of whimsy. And then there's these layers of things happening, right? Again, Sir Ian McKellen, Gus the theater cat, and he's giving
that's too far for me when he's drinking out the bowl of milk. That's too far for me. Sorry.
And, I'm having a hard time paying attention to Gandalf the Grey giving his all because what I'm distracted by is the idea that there was a team of like 5 CGI artists sitting around a wall full of pictures of geriatric cats with mange, trying to get the fur patterns just right, that they were going to splatter all over Suri and McKellen. Right. And I'm like, this is such a waste of everyone's time.
And then forget to put CGI hands on Idris Elba or some of the other random characters who have human hands for some reason.
I mean, I don't even understand it. And then the rules of this universe don't make any sense because, and depending on what you're talking about, one is perspective. Do you know
forced perspective here.
Do you know how big those trains have to be if all those cats can go like go-go dancing down the line of one of the train tracks, but then later a fork is that size, but also a bike seat on a bike is smaller. Like it just keeps, and I'm like, this is your world, idiots. Like you came up with this. Like what? You put in so much thought, and then no one, were you all working in silos? No one talked to each other? Because like, and that's just one piece of it. The other piece of it is that like okay, the train cat Skimbleshanks brings up a whole other huge issue here. He's the only one wearing pants, which means everyone else is Porky Pigging it. Do you realize that? So like the cats know they should wear pants because one of them is, which means that all the rest of them actually are naked, bumping and grinding in this PG movie. Like that's a pants problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, I thought that from the beginning that they just looked naked the whole time.
They completely do, especially Idris Elba.
I was covering my kid's eyes. I was like, guys, no.
Because the other problem is while they are all kind of Ken dolls down below, those tails are doing some really suggestive things.
Yes, no, that is a great point. I thought that I'm like, the tail kind of has a whole new meaning when it's attached to a human, right?
Yeah.
It gives a whole new, like, something sexy to it where it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this, or this makes me happy. Or
yeah, I mean, it's a vestigial erection, right? Just coming out the back instead. But
that's a good band name.
Vestigial Erection. That is like, that's a good like gutter punk band. The CGI is so noticeable.
So bad.
And you know, I feel so much for these guys, like doing some research into what the actual post-production was like. Tom Hooper was just, first of all,
I don't blame anyone but him.
If you are the director doing something like this, you have to know he was so willfully ignorant of the animation process. He was like, just go do it. And so like he was wanting dailies that had finished rendered CGI. And they were like,
how it works.
Dude, 5 minutes of this rendered is going to take like 300 computers and it's going to take like 9 weeks. You can't have it this afternoon. He had no idea how any of it worked. He started shit-talking the artists.
Oh, my God.
Like, he was like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with you? You can't, like, my job's hard. You just got to slap some, cat guts onto all of the actors.
One of the few directors that has an Oscar and a Razzie. So, congratulations, Tom.
A dubious honor. But seriously, when you do that, apparently they spent 4 months on the trailer, and they ended up with, I want to say it was 4 months to do the rest of the movie.
Yikes.
Yeah. Which is the reason why when you see it, blue screen everywhere, right? I mean, it looks...
that's all it is.
So terrible. It looks like Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow threw up all over Zoobly Zoo.
Oh, you had that one written down. I know it.
Of course I did.
Last thing. What do you think of Judi Dench breaking the fourth wall here at the end?
I remember that from... Well, first of all, Deuteronomy, her character... was
first time a female, right?
Yeah, it's originally a male character, and there's kind of an old. I think cats might be responsible for this joke, but there's kind of an old joke in musicals that's always like every musical has a role for an old person, so you can get that like luminary star that's past their prime to just sit on a rock somewhere and be like, well, this town has changed a lot in the last couple of years, right? And you just wheel them out for that one song, and then you can wheel them away. But that way you can throw them on the marquee, right? And everybody shows up because they're like, well, they'll be dead soon, so we'll go see the musical so we can see that person who's past their prime, right? And so the Deuteronomy character is totally one of those.
Is that
folks.
on the poster? She'll be dead soon.
Yeah, she'll be dead soon, so you probably want to come see her now. And so, like, that breaking of the fourth wall of, like, how to address a cat is
Yeah.
like that's pretty standard fare, I think.
Okay.
For something like this.
I guess at that point I was up for anything
Sure,
because it was like we're let's just get this over with.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing I want to say is that in Taylor Swift, when she shows up with her sexy song with her cat boobs, and gets all the characters stoned on catnip, in the McCavity song, so she sings, everybody else is singing a song about themselves. Taylor Swift shows up to sing a song about Idris Elba. Make of that what you will. But in her song, she says, McCavity has broken every human law. And I'm like sodomy and murder? He's a cat. Like, for real? Like, that kind of struck me as, I don't know. That was interesting. But I finished watching the movie and wrote down all my chuckles, all my jokes. And then I started thinking about it. And I wrote this, and this is what I want to end the review with. I kind of love that this exists. I love that in a world of committees that make movies now, most failures look like Batman v Superman or Rise of Skywalker, which are dumb, senseless, and boring, right? And you're just like, oh, things fell apart in communication, and But Cats is a singular vision of corny, cringy, silly, sappy, and poorly thought through insanity. A failure of fantastical proportions. The world's a better place because it exists, because it's so dumb. So fucking beautifully ugly and dumb. I love it. And my only real critique, if I could change anything about its existence, is this. I wish it hadn't been a musical since 81. For a lot of people, that's their only saving grace. People that went and saw this, right? The kids who went and saw this because they stand so hard for T Swift that they were just like, we gotta go. Taylor Swift's in it. And then they were just terrified, right? But they can keep a tenable grasp on reality by being like, well, some old British guy made a stupid musical about cats way back before even my parents were born. So it's not Taylor Swift's fault, right? But imagine if Cats the musical had never existed before this movie. And imagine if Tom Hooper had just come up and shat this golden bonkers ass nugget in one fell swoop. It would have driven people insane when they saw it, like Sutter Kane's books and In the Mouth of Madness. Like, It would just be too beautiful and terrible for anyone to even know what had happened by the time they walked out, right? Like, they would just be like, I've gone blind. I can't see colors anymore. Like, Yikes. It would have just been, that's the only thing I could wish for, is that, like, if it had been that nuts, it was just like, yeah, I had this dream one night that all the humans were horny cats and I wrote a musical. And then I got all this CGI and I got all these cameras and all this money and all these really famous people to do it.
And obviously lots of catnip to help you write this insane story.
I think Cooper is on. I don't, you know what? I don't think we're going to see him for a while.
I mean, from what I've heard, Les Mis was really bad too. So it is what it is. But wow, well, way to spin it on a positive note there at the end. Nice work there.
I mean, it's the platypus, right? It's the platypus of modern movies. It should not be, and yet
it exists.
It's on HBO. You can just go watch it.
All right. Please like and subscribe if you want to join us on this journey of film festivals and other punishment reviews. I love that we can swing from Cats to starting our new festival next week, Director's Revenge Festival. We're going to start off with Mad Max Fury Road. Very excited to talk about that.
Yes.
Please like and subscribe and write reviews, write us emails, whatever floats your boat. And we will see you next week for Mad Max.
Thanks a lot, you guys. Bye.
Meow.